brings up an interesting thought is that timing is so important when it comes to a business. Sometimes you time it right, sometimes you don't. So you have protection that's put in place, and then maybe you decide to either pivot or you just shutter your doors altogether, and then timing comes into play, and then the market comes to you. Yeah, how does your IP work once you decide to close, shut down the doors?
Great question. And of course, we're seeing a lot of pivoting these days, but it's not actually a new topic. One of the things I tell people about intellectual property is that one of its functions is to operate as a hedge against a failure to execute all or part of your business. I had a client in the early 2000s, which was trying to innovate in the space of providing you with a better interface for your television. Everyone was frustrated that with all the content out there, you had to navigate a linear system using up, down, left, right keys, and it could take you 15 minutes to type in the name of a movie you were looking for. So they came up with the idea that they were going to provide free space pointing, make it random access using an in-the-air pointer. But their main business was to sell the software, the interfaces for the televisions. They went into the marketplace, found out that the existing technology for motion control was not good enough for the user experience to be able to pick letters out on a television accurately enough to not frustrate them. So they invented their own suite of sensors that were way more accurate and performed that function in a lot better way. Turns out 5 years down the road, their attempt to penetrate the market with respect to the television interfaces was unsuccessful. The Comcasts of the world were not interested. They felt like they could do just fine on their own. But that motion control technology got picked up by Nintendo, and even now the big box TV manufacturers are using it, and it's showing up in robots. So they pivoted and they had IP on both areas. And it's a good thing they did, because their sort of throw-in IP, this motion control stuff, was what turned out to be really valuable.
Interesting. So I have this great idea. It was too soon for the market, and then so I decided to shut my doors. But then a year later or 2 years later, someone has something that would infringe on the IP that I have. Since I closed my business, is it too late? And there's no leg for me to stand on, or is that something that I can go after the other company for?
Sure. Well, I guess it depends a little bit on how you close your business. A lot of these things close in the context of being sold somehow to somebody. And if somebody picks up your business, they're going to want to acquire the IP. So that's going to become their decision. If you shut the business yourself without selling it, but keep the IP alive, then of course you would have that opportunity to go back and try and monetize that IP, either yourself or in tandem with one of these monetization companies that could help you do it.
It's interesting. So I'm a big wrestling fan. Ridiculous statement of the year. It's June 18th. I'm 36 years old, and I still watch wrestling. Gosh, what a loser I am. No, well, maybe I am a loser for watching wrestling. I don't know. Okay, so back in the day, the WWE acquired the rights to one of their competitors called WCW, and the big thing, the reason why, is they wanted the video catalog, because they wanted to be able to replay that. It was before streaming and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But they had this thought that in the future, maybe there would be this catalog, of this digital catalog of all the pay-per-views, all of the normal TV shows that they had. And they acquired all that for actually very cheap. What's interesting is people now have talked about that. I think they bought it for like $2 million. And which is like one person's salary at that point in some of these cases. So what's interesting is they bought it for pennies on the dollar, basically, for that type of thing. I think it's very similar. So that would be like a copyright trademark. They bought the catalog, the IP. They're buying all that stuff because of that. Okay. So the Vince McMahon owns the XFL. The XFL just folded, bankruptcy, whatever the correct term is, but it's for sale. And so is it kind of the same case in that right now? Because I feel like we're kind of going through that, where he's going to be selling the name and the rights and the IP associated with it, not necessarily the players, but the function of it. Is that what you would envision is happening?
Sure, absolutely. And a lot of times when I'm trying to explain intellectual property to virtually anyone. I use real property analogies, and you can envision intellectual property in this context just like the building that the WWC or XFL might have purchased for their offices as part of a bankruptcy proceeding or any other kind of transaction. You're going to try and sell whatever assets you have, whether they're tangible assets like a building or intellectual property assets like a brand or the copyrights to those videos you mentioned. So yeah, absolutely. I would foresee that that's exactly what's happening.